if you start reading the Fabian pamphlets at length, you'll come across the idea of communism, i.e. getting rid of money, getting rid of, and having an economy which is moneyless. Now this, of course, is not an economy at all. It's an illusion to think it's an economy. There's no way how they could economically calculate. There's no way how they'd be able to deal with scarcity. And that is exactly the questions that the economic calculation argument poses and exposes, that the socialists, as one fellow, I had brought out two books in 1936. One was called Collectivist Economic Planning, and another was a volume by writers from around the world. One of them had the essay that I mentioned earlier on, the Kautsky and Pearson exchange, and another an essay by Boris Brodsky, who was a Russian economist. And Brodsky said, quite rightly, exactly in the head, the socialists don't even think about socialism. They just take it for granted that everything's going to be all right. In other words, they don't even see the economic problem. And this is why they don't understand scarcity. You ask a socialist, an active socialist, what scarcity is, he's almost bound, unless he's a trained economist and knows something about it. But if he's not a trained economist, a literature student or philosophy student or something, he's almost bound to come up with the idea of shortages. In other words, if there's something shortage, then it's scarce. If there's no shortage in the shop, then there is no scarcity. Now, of course, the trained economists will say, well, how come the things in the shop command the price then? Can only command the price if it's scarce. But that's the economic idea of scarcity that the socialist still hasn't seen, because he hasn't seen the economic problem itself. And that is the reason why. And you ask him, well, why have we made so much progress then, say, since 1900? We've got a whole bunch of things now that they didn't have in 1900. Well, it seems to be something to do with history. Time goes on.
Or science.
So, maybe science, but history, time, the passing of time, things just do get better. Yes. It is it's based on naivety, and even people like, when you look at Kautsky's replies to Pearson, even the man as bright as Kautsky comes out with this naivety. So, it's it really is based on a lack of enlightenment. And so, really, if you want to get rid of the anti-capitalist mentality, and you want, of course, there's a lot. I mean, a lot of it is based upon literature and stuff like people like Carlyle and Ruskin and so on. People like this have built up a case against capitalism, which Arthur's trying to struggle against in this book. You have got to educate these people on this elementary game theory that I've been talking about. I think you've got to get them to get things in perspective, because basically they've been, as Arthur says throughout the book, they've been looking at all the bad things in capitalism without having a look at what capitalism has done and what it can do, given some sympathy. Arthur keeps saying time and time again, why don't they ask what capitalism or what the market could do if it was given some sympathy, if you looked at it in a sympathetic light? What can it do? Now we know what socialism can do, they can't do anything because it doesn't exist, it's like a unicorn. There is just no socialism. So it does nothing, it's never done anything, it never will do anything. It's just a hope, a surmise. Now, when they try it on, they still have to print the ruble. They still have to run the Soviet economy like a capitalist economy, as Polanyi points out. And so, it is, I think, what is going to get rid of the anti-capitalist mentality is the getting it in perspective by game theory and having a look at the fact that politics, even if we do have to have it, is nevertheless negative sum and very wasteful. Now, there are a number of things. I mean, perhaps the main oddity in Arthur's book is he keeps saying, you run through socialism, some socialist case, and you'll say, well, the Achilles heel of this is this. He uses that time, he must use it about 20 times in the book. But of course, socialism has no Achilles heel. Achilles heel is where Achilles is powerful apart from his heel. If anything, socialism hasn't even got an anti-Achilles heel. If there's some part of socialism which is strong, I've yet to see it. I'd say exactly the same with Christianity, actually. It isn't. one or two problems out on the periphery that Christians or the socialists haven't solved. It is the whole thing is naked and lacks any alternatives to capitalism. Has got nothing to say for itself, no prospects. It's never existed. It's never likely to exist. It's just overlooking the economic. It's just ignorance of the economic problem. Just overlooking, thinking that we haven't got any problem. That things will just sort themselves out.
If there's no alternative to capitalism, then we must have capitalism now.
Yes. Do
we have capitalism now?
Yes, I think so.
In full, pressed down, running over?
Well, yes, in full. However, we have something else. We have this thing that I said was very wasteful, that we ought to roll back in order to allow less wastage. And that is the state. Now, the state isn't an alternative economic system. It isn't. You could say it's part of capitalism. Capitalism made it, just like it made everything else.
Well, it keeps it.
And it faces economic. The state faces the economic problem and solves it by taxing people a bit more and so on, or some inflation or something. So the state, there's a political economy of the state. I mean, they did actually before Alfred Marshall call the whole subject political economy, and Keynes tried to reverse that because he thought it was political economy. Keynes did, and a lot of other people think as well. But heaven knows what they've got in mind when they think that. Because Marshall is clearly right. The state is on the periphery of society. It's not at the centre of society. It's on the periphery of society, and most economic transactions are. It's true that it's done with state money and so on, which of course is another thing that you'd have to. As it says, he did say that Hayek thought of calling his denationalisation of money the demonopolisation of money, says Arthur. And that's probably a good way of looking at it. We do want to get rid of the monopolies. Arthur said quite rightly that we can have private monopolies and state monopolies, but the private monopolies will allow other entries into the market, and they may well have, they may or may not have, but at least they can have at any time. Whereas the state monopolies tend to be protectionist, and and if you set up the state to do a job of work like we did during the war. You tend to find that all these state things, like NATO, carry on after the job's done. NATO's there to oppose the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact collapsed, but NATO goes on. You have to find new uses for NATO, perhaps the Islamic terror thing or something. They look around for something new. The job's done. Whereas the firm, if a firm's selling certain things, and everyone's got these certain things, so they don't buy any more, then the firm finds itself withering away. And this is another thing I did say in my, John asked me to do a write-up, I said I'd talk about, because Arthur embraced it, quite rightly so, I mean it's essentially correct. W.H. Hutt's Consumer Sovereignty. Now I think this is false on both accounts, however it's basically, the basic logic of it is right. However, I just rearranged the terminology of it. We don't get any sovereignty on the market. I mean, if Marx was right on one thing, he was quite right to call the market a complete anarchy. And this, of course, is why Marx wanted to abolish money. Because he wanted central planning, and if you had money, you could never have central planning, because money would give people independence from the plan, and that would mess the plan up. So you have to abolish money, get rid of money completely, and have the planned economy. Now, of course, the point is he doesn't know how to make men's meat. He's got no economic criterion. There is no socialist economics for it to use, so it still doesn't work. Still, the idea is to get rid of money, otherwise socialism will never work. Keep money. If you work it, if you get rid of money either. But anyway, socialism will never work, no matter what you do. But the correct way of looking at this is to see that every and it comes up with that. Ricardo said that our money is like votes, and we have more democracy from the market than we do from politics. Well, of course, a price is not like a vote. It's completely and utterly different. It's far more flexible, capable of coping with the economic problem. A vote cannot do that. A vote is all sizes fit one. Everyone must wear our Brexit underpants or whatever it is, and if the Remain had one, we'd have to wear our Remain underpants. It's one size fits all, it's inflexible and so on, whereas money is very flexible. And there is no democracy on the market, but Arthur repeated about 100 times in the book that the market is more democratic than politics is. But of course, What it means is that the market is more responsive to human beings than politics could ever be. And of course it is. The market is very responsive to human beings. It's very humane. Now, so the real terms we should say is that consumers have patronage, not sovereignty. If I go in to buy a Mars bar, I can't tell the lady to give me a Mars bar. She can tell me to get out, get lost. She doesn't like the fact that I don't wear glasses or something. It doesn't matter what she doesn't like. She's not going to serve me and so on. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not sovereign over her any more than she's sovereign over me. But what I can do is patronise that shop to the extent of buying a Mars bar there, or buying a newspaper or anything else. So you have patronage, and instead of so you don't have any sovereignty. You have anarchy in the market. You don't have any power in the market, and you have and of course you don't have, the consumer isn't the person who buys. The housewife is always a customer, and very often the consumers are little boys and girls who are still in their pram, or perhaps running their tent. They might be running down the road and getting their trousers stripped while they're climbing over a hedge or something. They are the consumers. The housewife will consume some of the things, but she won't consume more what she buys. And what we get throughout society is customers, and most of these customers aren't going to consume what they buy. If I'm a rep going around buying some things for, say, Rolls Royce, I'm not going to consume the things that I buy. The customer isn't a consumer. So we get customer patronage, not consumer sovereignty on the market. So that was my thing that I wanted to say. And so, well, I think Arthur was quite successful. At the end of his life, he could see that he made a lot of progress, and he was very fond of Mrs. Thatcher, I think. And he thought that was a good thing. And of course, since then, the politics, he did say time and time again that ordinary Conservatives would be just as bad as ordinary Labourites. And what we have got is the Conservative Party has modernised, and they've come back as anti-market as ever, and just as anti-market as the Labour Party, as far as I can see. So he probably wouldn't be too happy about things in the last couple of decades. But I think he was a very successful man, very zestful man, and all these arguments are in here about the economic calculation argument, Mises and so on. And I recommend this book, if you ever see it. It's a book I've been basically reviewing. Then I'll open it for discussion.
Very good, thank you, David. One of the anecdotes at the IEA, which I should share with you, is that Mrs. Thatcher came to a dinner or something, and Ralph Harris, Lord Harris,
yes.
Note, yes. Said three cheers for Mrs. Thatcher for the work she's done. And Arthur said, well, maybe two. And he didn't get a peerage. Yeah. Did he get a knighthood? Did he get anything?
You've got a CBE, isn't it?
County councillors get those, don't they? Anyway, we're not statists here, of course. Right, questions?
Yeah, David, I thought it was a terrific talk. How would you explain the superior performance of the Soviet market economy in terms of GDP growth compared with Western market economies? What was the secret of their success?
The Russian statistics?
Lies. No, I mean, if you actually look at the Madison statistics, so, the Angus Madison historic GDP series and also studies, their economy grew by a factor of about 6.5 times from 1917 to 1989, versus about 4 times for Western economies.
Well, I agree with what Arthur Seldon was saying. He was very suspicious of all these statistics.
No, these are not the Soviet statistics. These are
No, I'm not thinking. He was. I don't. I think statistics can be. I used to say when I was studying statistics back in the 1970s, I used to reverse. Often attributed to Disraeli, isn't it? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. I used to say lies, damn lies, and the truth. But then I was a statistics student. I think I don't know whether they're right or not. I mean, I don't know. They may be true, but I would be very sceptical about them. Very sceptical about it. he says he's sceptical, a number of times he says in the book, he's sceptical about all statistics, and I would be as well. Mainly on Popperian grounds, I'm sceptical of science on Popperian grounds, as Popper says. It's best to test it as vigorously as you can, but just because it survives all tests, even that doesn't mean that it's true. What is the truth? I'm afraid I don't know.
I'd like to add...
I'll just jump in before we go to the next person. It is, of course, possible that you can make people work harder than they would have wished to work. It's not a pure game. They may have rather liked days off, or not fearing being sent to a camp somewhere in the east. So even if it were the case, and of course starting from an appallingly low base, which they managed with their attempts to do without economic calculation, do without money, then of course they would grow. So it might be, if you slave drive people, in certain circumstances, there can be a great zoom in growth, but...
yeah, exactly sort of your point that it's kind of comparing developing economies versus a developed one, which would naturally be more stagnated. And even towards the end, you did see that type of stagnation in crises. So,
what I would say, I've just remembered, is that when the Soviet Union did collapse, there was a Soviet economist called, which Arthur mentioned actually, called Gambagan, who wrote a book called Moving the Mountain. And in this, he questioned a lot of the statistics. So, I mean, I did read it at the time, but I've forgotten exactly what it says. But he does think that he's probably got something much better than I've got to say on Soviet statistics.
Yeah, the official statistics were hugely exaggerated, but external sources reduced, but even the external ones said they averaged between 3 and 4% GDP growth a year per capita, which is a good performance.
Yeah, but I guess it depends what was growing, because if you went to Russia in the 80s, I mean, it was a dump. I mean, the standard of living was terrible. So I don't know what was growing, maybe some factory somewhere.
And even the proxy measures improved, like life expectancy increased dramatically during the Soviet Union.
Maybe life expectancy.
Housing
From what I hear, the life expectancy of Russia is one of the lowest in the world.
The male life expectancy in Russia is about 60.
Yeah, but in fact it's fallen back since the Soviet days.
Better than Scotland. No, it was always like that.
It wasn't the highest here, but it did increase.
But there was the Civil War, there were the purges, there was the Second World War. Things should look up after all that stopped.
Yeah, it's great for us to think more about living about what happened during World War II. Though, I mean, the place was trashed, and they were forced to shove all their industry onto the wrong side of the Urals.
Next.
Pedantic point. Popperian grounds.
Oh, yeah. Quite right. There are no Popperian grounds.
Exactly. So, you mean the Popperian conjecture?
Yes?
He has arguments.
Yes, but he doesn't hold an argument to support anything. Popper is... Popper isn't... I mean, Popper holds that the skeptics get justification right. There is no justification.
Oh, right.
He doesn't hold that they hold that you must suspend your belief. Popper thinks that belief is irrelevant anyway. Then what else do they hold? They suspend judgment. Well, you can't do that anymore. I'd say you can't do that. But skeptics are hopeless on that. There's something else that the skeptics hold, which is germane to Popper. Anyhow, Popper doesn't agree totally with the skeptics, but he agrees with about two of their points. That belief's irrelevant, and that a solid argument, a sound argument, cannot back any thesis. And of course, Judge Stuart Mill holds that as well.
John Stuart Mill, of his own free will.
You've got to finish now.
I've got to finish now.
Wrote a book on logic.
John Stuart Mill, by a mighty effort of will. No, I'll have to finish it later now. Sorry to depress you.
John Stuart Mill, of his own will, wrote a book on logic.
No. Let's carry on. Could someone Google? Please go on. Sorry about that, gentlemen.
David, first of all, apologies for missing the first part, for missing most of your talk. So I'm going to ask ask you a question about the bit I did hear. You said that the fundamental objection to the state is that it's wasteful. You gave the example of transfer costs associated with taxation.
Sorry, can you speak?
Sorry, yeah. I'm not sure it's worth hearing, but you said that the state is wasteful, and that's the fundamental objection that you have against it, and you gave the example of transfer costs in the context of sort of wealth transfers by tax. But isn't there also another aspect to that, which is that even if it were possible for the state to costlessly transfer wealth from one individual to another, so that you didn't have any civil servants operating the system, nevertheless, you will get huge losses because people will inevitably, because no tax is neutral, no change like that is neutral, will have to change their behaviour, or will change their behaviour away from what they would have preferred to do to other things that they won't want to do as much. I mean, just to take a trivial example, suppose that you raise the money for the poor people by taxing all the apple growers. You impose some vast profit tax on apples. The price of apples goes up, apples cost more, people consume fewer apples. Now, that is a loss, because if that weren't done, you'd be eating all those yummy apples, but now you've got to eat all those wretched pears. You don't want to, you would rather eat the apples. That seems to me is just as big a loss, and potentially a lot more important than just looking at the cost of the civil servants who have to administer the tax schemes.
Yeah, you're probably right, but that's another argument for why taxation is negative sum.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but you see, I'll just give you an argument for why.
It's just that if you just focus on the administrative costs, then people will say, well,
It's not the wages, it's the effect of the policy.
Yeah, well, that's just to score another goal on my side, as it were.
Isn't the fundamental reason that taxation marks up the economic calculation?
It does, yeah.
That's it, really.
But you know, it's not economic. Taxation is basically not economic.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
And that's why we should say.
Tell us more about how
that's why we need less state.
Well, David will explain the economic calculation argument.
The point is that if someone has found a wonderful formula, a great product, a cheaper way of doing it, and makes pots of money, if he is taxed and taxed and taxed again, he won't do as much. He can't turn out as much. I mean, that's suppressing something which was a great gain for other people.
No, that's a different argument than economic calculation argument.
Not dissimilar. It's a taxation effect.
No.
All right.
Everybody knows about taxation effects. There seems to me that you're disrupting the information you've got about the economy. And that is it. Tell me more about that.
Yes.
The speaker can explain the economic
We didn't
calculation.
explain it before. Well, I don't take that as an explanation.
I don't know, because if I may, you could conceive of a situation, I suppose, where the tax structure is clear and fixed for all time, and will never change. Now, if you did have that situation, then it's perhaps less obvious that economic calculation is disrupted, because you do know what the costs are, you do know what prices are. In the real world, of course, taxes do change, and so to that extent at least, because there is uncertainty injected in by a variable tax system, economic calculation becomes more difficult in just the same way as inflation and money printing and so on and so forth.
Arthur says about 10 times in the book that no price is perfect, and no economic calculation is perfect. And that's true. And so many people, I mean, Mises, Hayek, and other people have said, well, how come the ruble worked then? Was it influenced by prices abroad and so on? Well, I think that the ruble could be used for economic calculation to some extent. Now, obviously, they missed out on the development of the Western market. They missed out on the stock exchange and so on, and obviously they did have problems catching up when they did, when they finally were admitted that the game was up, as it were, around about 1990, but as long as they got the ruble. Now, of course, they did try it on. They did try free access. I mean, I was going to say that Michael Polanyi had a disciple called Paul Trade Roberts, who wrote a brilliant little book called Alienation in the Soviet Economy. And in this, he said they actually tried on free access, i.e., they started demanding that they have goods sent to them without being paid, which is how it was working. Now, they did do that, and of course it brought about famine and so on, and all sorts of trouble. But they didn't entirely do that there. At the same time, they used the ruble to do some economic calculation. So it wasn't there is no perfect market economy. I mean, I met some libertarians who actually thought that it was that the setting up of the perfect market in textbooks was a conspiracy against liberalism. And you can be forgiven for saying that. But anyhow, there is no perfect prices, there is no perfect economic calculation. But you have to have some. The mass urban society you can have. You might find a little tribe in one of the Pacific Islands that make a living without money. Face-to-face relationships. All the market is based on face-to-face relationships. I mean, the market, again, Carlyle says you want no break with the cash nexus. And of course, no liberal has ever said that everything has to be cash nexus. Society is based on what the sociologists call primary groups. It's based on friendship and family and so on, and these are devoid largely of cash nexus, of course. You only use cash with strangers, to trade with strangers, people in China and so on, or across the world to trade. And all society is based it's not based on cash nexus. But as soon as you start going into the mass urban society, you have to have some form of money to do some form of economic calculation. And the less economic calculation you do, the more you go down the Swanee. Because the array of things that we can do before us is infinite. And we're almost without money to guide us. I mean, money does a hell of a lot more work than we think. Already, when we're talking about telephone lines, we know that it's one or two things, copper, gold, and so on, fibre optics and so on. We know that the fact that we know that it's one or two things is work that the price system has done. The price system helps society run. It does a hell of a lot of work, and all this work is overlooked by, not only by socialists, but even by my. I did study economics for A-level in Matthew Portland in Birmingham, and my tutor was absolutely anti-liberal, completely. He was a Keynesian, a funk, and he overlooked most of these things. David Higgins, his name was.
I don't overlook the price mechanism. The problem is there's some goods which I think shouldn't be subject to the market, particularly the control of the land. And I mean literally the land. So you could have developers who build houses and they said they built this, and I totally take that about the value of their know-how. I want the land back, seriously.
Well, it isn't your land. It never was your land. No more your land, it's my land.
No, but I haven't got any alternative. I can't go to Mars because I don't like it.
Scotland.
Don't you realise the social unrest though, which has generated it? It's all right you say, well, that's why I want that Mars rather than some other good.
What land?
In terms of living, I've got no alternative. I'm serious.
I think we've got enough of a question there, David.
Well, the point is, Dominic, you've never had this land. It's never was your land to begin with.
No, but that's a human sentiment. No, but that's an abstract quantity. No, what you've got to realise, though, people are going to represent themselves as saying that as a primeval truth. And you can say, well, that's not a metaphysical. I don't give a shit about it. I just want the land back.
What do you mean you want the land back? You can't have the land back.
Yes, I can.
It's not. You never had it in the first place.
Well, it was Seldon, wasn't it, by the aristocracy?
Yes.
It wasn't stolen off him.
I'm deadly serious.
Nobody could stolen off
It makes
me.
sense to have a nation
Can I just
what's the point of being a citizen?
I think we've got enough there.
Can I just ask a simple question?
Hang on, we'll do this one first. Is there a problem with land, especially compared to other things?
Yes.
Henry George thought there was,
Yes.
but Rothbard thought there wasn't. And I think Rothbard's right. I think land is just a normal good.
Yeah.
It can be treated by marginal theory just like any other thing in
And it can be
economics.
created.
Oh yes, have you?
Islands floating on the sea.
I used to live in Charlotte Tower on the 5th floor.
The idea that they're not making land anymore is bollocks. Mark Twain got it wrong.
Holland is an example.
A block of flats. They destroyed land the other day when that drum.
Yeah,
that was land being
come
destroyed.
out if they make